thank you to everybody for being here, to our fabulous audience, to my opponent here today, and special thanks to Danny here today. The resolution that we are giving is space exploration is worth it. We're going to start off with some resolutional analysis. First of all, I'd like to define space exploration as the ongoing discovery and exploration of celestial structures in our outer space by means of continuously evolving and growing space technology. Worth it in this round can be defined as good or successful to repay any effort, trouble, or expense. So this round is going to be weighed on a mechanism where we have to prove whether or not it's worth it. If I am successful in proving that we have successfully repaid any effort, trouble, or expense, I should win this round. If my opponent proves that we have not done this, he should win this round. So today we're going to be offering 3 lenses of analysis as to why space exploration is worth it. But first of all, I'd like to start off with some background. For more than 50 years, we have been exploring space, and through this exploration, we've had many benefits to our society. Space exploration highlights the innovative nature of our species and creates opportunity for the advancements of our entire world. So today, I am thoroughly excited to be affirming that space exploration is worth it. My first lens of analysis is going to be that of the economics of space. NASA's 2015 budget is, according to the NASA website, is $17.5 billion. And this is a large budget. And through this, we can see that this is the main point of argumentation as to determine whether or not it's worth it, is the economic cost. But we can see that according to Wallace Fowler, professor of aerospace engineering, we have an $8 to $10 return on investment on every dollar we spend through space exploration. And this is due to the fact that we have what's known as the NASA spin-off. This is essentially an idea that was studied by the Chase Econometric Associates, which revealed that there's a common trend every time we go off and explore space. What happens is that NASA says, hey, we want to go launch this program, we want to go have this exploration, and they go out and they start a launch into space. This creates jobs, and then these jobs are sustained through the development of these programs. But further, we can see that every single time that we create jobs which offer advancements in science and field and tech, they're also sustained through the creation of new technology. And so through this, we can get into the second point today, which is going to be that space exploration leads to innovation. We can see that when we analyze the worth of space exploration, it's important to note that the innovations that we have produced as an aspect of this have great economic benefits and social benefits to our society. Without space exploration, we wouldn't have things such as LED lights or memory foam mattress pads. We've also had advancements in technology that lead to chemical detection technology and fire-resistant materials. Further, we've also seen things such as the advancement of baby food. As we've gone up into space, we've had to create innovations in our food that we've used, and we've utilized that in our public sphere. Further, we can also see that solar panels are a direct result of the investment in space technology. Also CAT scans, also microchips, also insulation in housing, also highway grooves. All of these things have been a direct result of the innovation that occurs every time we go into space and use these technologies to explore. All of this innovation proves that it's actually going to be a net benefit, both economically and societally. Further through this, we can see that the Washington Post reported in August of 2014 that we have an immediate return of benefits back to the Earth through materials, power generation, and energy, and advancements in robotics. So through this, we can see that these impacts are huge as a direct result of space innovation. We have the impact of saving lives, increasing the quality of life, and we have a more productive and efficient society as a direct result of this exploration of space. The last argument that I'm going to be making here today is possibly one of the strongest, and it's the fact that space exploration is the only investment in our future that we truly have. Space exploration represents the long-term investment in the human race. As we can see, the world is constantly in a place of aggression and destruction, and if we continue to move the way that we are moving, we are not going to have any options if we eradicate space exploration. Stephen Hawking said that, "I believe that the long-term future of the human race must be space." And so we can see that this is worth it on a net scale of short-term and longer-term goals, both economically and society for our country, and for the world at large. So through these 3 lenses of analysis, I am proud to affirm that space exploration is completely worth it. We can see that the economic payoffs are in both the job sector and in the production of new technologies and innovations. We can also see that this is the only way that we can truly invest in our future as a society at large. If we don't continue the advancements that we have been seeing through space exploration, we potentially have no place to go, and we're going to end up with mass migration to, well, space exploration leads to mass migration, and this is going to be beneficial for our society at large. So for all of these reasons, I would like to state again that space exploration is absolutely worth it.
All right, we'll now call upon the negative to do 2 minutes of cross-examination.
Early in your resolution analysis, you stated how space, you define it as ongoing celestial structure and exploration in that space technology, correct?
I define space exploration both as one term, so that's all of the advancements in the technology and everything that we utilize to explore.
So it's with the goal in mind of going from Earth to space, right? That is direct objective.
But it also, within this definition, includes the space technology, so it does give me access to all of the technology that we use on Earth.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. Would you say that's a direct or an indirect result of space work?
I believe that it's indirect, but you can't just cut out direct or indirect. They both have influences, and without the innovations, we wouldn't have the indirect.
Okay. Later on you spoke on how the human race is a very volatile species. We're consumed with war. So why would we want to take that to other planets?
Well, see, the problem is that if we don't have any other options, when we ultimately do either destroy Earth through environmental purposes or through warfare, we have no option.
So it would be amazing if we could find an option here, so we wouldn't have to find another home.
Yes, but that's not been a viable resource or an option that we've actually been exploring while space exploration is.
Would you say it's because we're attempting to run from our problems and start colonies on other planets?
No, because I think that we have a united front where we still have we still have policies that are trying to combat all of those things, but space exploration is an important factor to be able to have a multifaceted approach.
Do you know how much was spent, let's say, in the U.S. on humanitarian aid versus that of the NASA budget?
I'm not entirely sure what our humanitarian aid budget is, but I did report that the NASA's 2015 budget is $17.5 million.
Okay,
or billion, not million, sorry.
So would you say if perhaps we were able to change tracks and focus and become a more peaceful, reusable, renewable planet, there would be no need, the worthiness of this space exploration to deplete?
If that was ever plausible for our society, then yes, that would be great, but that's a totally unrealistic aspect.
Is it plausible?
Okay, that's time. Thank you very much.
If anyone from outer space came to Earth, they would ask to speak to our manager because we're a mess, point blank, period. But it's not too late. We aren't past the breaking point, and there is much we can do to sustain this world than rather run from our problems, which we have done since the age of the caveman. And with this, I'd like to issue a round of thank yous to the beautiful audience for attending today, the judge for judging around, and for the opposition for allowing an excellent opportunity to clash. So I'm going to go over my arguments first before I address her, so we can have a base understanding of where I'm coming from. So I stand here to say that ultimately, space exploration is not worthwhile. Because we need to focus on what's happening here on Earth before we can start kicking in doors in outer space, asking for their resources. So I like to do this through two lenses of analysis, the first being that of humanitarian, and the second being that of environmental. So for my first argument on why space exploration is not worthwhile is that of humanitarian. Now, we have more pressing issues to work on today than trying to find a new home and assuming all is lost and all for naught. When we live in a world where the top 1% of earners earn more than 50% of the population's wealth, we have a major problem. The U.S. spent $11 billion, only $11 billion on humanitarian aid that could have gone to Haiti, could have gone to Japan, could have gone to many other locations. They spent $17.5 billion on NASA. For what? Memory foam mattresses and Velcro? How many of you got Velcro straps on your feet right now? Not many of you. A handful. But you see what I'm talking about. We need to get the maximum utility for what we're doing. Biggest bang for our buck. Now, we see ultimately how there are 45 million people living below the poverty line. We need to reestablish our resources. We need to disembark from this freight of going into another world, hoping that we can just go into another neighborhood and hope someone lives in that house. That's essentially what we're doing going to outer space. All this does is give us the opportunity to puff our chest, put a flag on the moon, and say, Mama, we made it. But ultimately, we see this isn't enough. We need to focus on the necessities here on Earth. Now, my next point is going to be that of the environment, and how ultimately we see that it's rockets, it's this gasoline, it's this oil that's used and invested in rocket technology and going to that space that's harming our ozone. People like to say, well, we're past the breaking point, we'll do it already. Well, if we keep this mentality, then yes, of course we'll go past the breaking point. But if this were true, why would President Obama make a $4 to $5 billion deal with Chinese President Xi Jinping to reduce global emissions? It's a bit counterproductive to emit so much through rocket ships and then focus on saving the ecosystem from carbon emissions that are released through this. This only hurts us and is detrimental to the world that we need to live in. My second one is how there is an alternative to the final frontier known as space, known as the deep blue sea. And as Slate magazine of March 2014 states, the deep blue sea, the environment down there, is very similar to that in space and what it takes to survive, and how we can use this as renewable energy, tidal power, sustain ourselves, and how less than 10% of the oceans in the world are explored. We haven't even looked in our backyard, and yet we want to go kick in doors in outer space. We need to invest and create jobs. It's estimated that we can create an additional 500,000 jobs just from investing a fraction of that 90% of the ocean. That's renewable, sustainable energy that won't deplete our ozone. I'll now address my opponent's argument. So her first argument is that of the economy, how NASA's budget is $17.5 billion. Simply because you throw a lot of money on it doesn't dictate its worth. Just because I give somebody $10, it doesn't mean it's worth $10. It could be worth $5, it could be $3. She says, well, we get to 8 to 10 return investment per dollar we spend. But as she said, on memory foam mattresses, on Velcro straps. Yes, we were able to gain CAT scans. Yes, we were able to gain satellites. I'm not saying these things aren't amazing. I'm not saying these things are not worthwhile. But worth deteriorates over time. Coming out of World War II, when we weren't the powerhouse anymore, after the Marshall Plan took effect, yeah, we needed these technological advances. But today in our day and age, we have developed a technology where we don't need to further pursue space, but we can pursue the deep blue sea and other alternatives that are green friendly, can help sustain the world, and make peace on a humanitarian level and an environmental level, so we don't have to have this volatile war state. We need to focus on issues in Ukraine. We need to focus on Syrian refugees. We need to focus on Boko Haram. We need to focus on so much more than staring at the skies. Worry about the man next to you than hoping that there's a man above you in the stars on another planet. Now, her next argument essentially states how NASA, we create these spin-off things, jobs are sustained. But as stated by the Slate magazine on that March article in 2015, it's estimated we can gain more jobs and renewable jobs than one-time trips that cost a fortune. We can have jobs here on Earth and not have to risk the death of those 18 astronauts we've lost in our NASA history. Her next argument is that of new technological innovations, and how essentially she says, well, it's great economically and it's great socially. We now have LED lights, chemical, and fire resistance. That's perfectly fine. Those are all worthwhile when we have them. We have these technologies now. There's no reason to furthermore invest. Today, in our current age, as we are stating this debate, space exploration is not worthwhile. Was it? Yes. So was riding horses in the Wild Wild West. But we've advanced from that. We've come up with technologies where we no longer need to rely on these technological advancements given through space, because we can gain this and more by focusing on the deep blue sea, the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Mediterranean. Now, she states how ultimately her next argument is how space is an investment in our future, and how it's a long-term investment in humanity. That, as I stated before, if we focus on the problems at home, we don't have to worry about this long-term investment. Gandhi once said, we have what we need on Earth for what we need, but not for our greed. Thank you.
So my first question for you today is going to be that of the fact, when you talk about the fact that we spend $11 billion on humanitarian aid every year, what is our defense budget in the United States, do you know, roughly?
Regardless of the defense budget, it's approximately, it's significantly larger. It's in the triple digits.
It's significantly larger than the space exploration, correct?
Yes, if you dismantle the space exploration, which isn't an immediate need right now, that money can go to more fundamental humanitarian.
So then through this, if we defund the space exploration, basically the gist of your argument is that it's not worth it and we should defund it and put the money into other places, correct?
More humanitarian and environmentally friendly places so we can sustain our beautiful green Earth.
Space exploration not an aspect of sustaining our Earth, as well as, through the technology, that we see, haven't there been advancements in technology as a direct result of space exploration that have led to the Earth being sustained itself?
Yes, in the 60s, the 70s, and 80s. Today, we've been reduced to into the wormhole by Morgan Freeman.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If you have a really good thing going for you, would you cut it off, even though it's a good thing that's going for you?
With NASA's record over these past 20 years, yes.
Okay, then what aspect of NASA's record do you think is so negative? The deaths that you reported, or is there some other aspect of it that is making it not beneficial? What is it about the budget
not only the deaths, but we are using something that we no longer need.
Why don't
Something
we
that
need
is
it?
no longer renewable because we have much better alternatives, such as focusing on the deep blue sea, such as focusing our efforts on things more prevalent. I'm not saying space exploration is not important. I'm saying it's not worthwhile as we are talking.
Okay. So then, I think I'm actually, how do we measure global warming? That's my other question for you.
Well, I'm not a scientist, so I can't give you the exact measurements.
Okay. Perfect, that's all I need. Okay, so just to start off, I'm going to be addressing the arguments that my opponent just made. His first argument is that of the humanitarian effort. He's saying that we have more pressing issues. Basically, the argument is that we're spending $17.5 billion into space exploration, but what about Earth? What about our humanitarian needs? I would first like to point out through cross-examination that I pointed out that our defense budget is significantly more than our budget for space exploration, and that further proves the point that we are simply invested in destroying our Earth, destroying each other. And that's why my point of the migration to into outer space is a crucial point that he dropped through his argumentation. When he talks about the fact that there's all these people that are below the poverty line, like all of these things are happening and all we're trying to do is put a flag on the moon. That is not what we are doing with space exploration, and he misses the entire point of all of the argumentation that I brought up through the economics. We can actually see that when we have an $8 to $10 return on every dollar we spend, it's going to be helping our economy. All of the investment and all of these things help people who are below the poverty line. They lead to advancements in our medical fields and our technologies. All of these things are going to be more beneficial. Further, I think it's a weak argument to simply say that we should just defund space exploration and put it all into humanitarian needs. The United States spends $35 billion on pizza every year. We have all of these issues with our monetary systems here in the United States, so this is not a strong argument. Further, when he talks about the ozone layer, he's talking about all of these things with global emissions and how we have better options with the deep blue sea. I would like to point out that the only reason why we actually gained advancements in recognizing global warming is because we invested in satellite technology through space exploration. So we wouldn't even be aware of these problems if we didn't have the advancements in space exploration. And so further, when he talks about the fact that the deep blue sea is a great investment, I agree. I think we should be doing both. There's no argumentation to say that we can't simply be saying space exploration is great and so is deep sea exploration. You don't have to simply say one or the other. So to reiterate some of my points on the other side, he talks about the fact that worth deteriorates over time and that it's no longer worthwhile. But we can see that a lot of these advancements are still being improved upon. Actually, this year, NASA came out with technology that they utilized in space where basically there's polymers on the outside of the space shuttles and they rebuild themselves every time it's hit with infrastructure. Can you imagine the possibilities of implementing that sort of technology into our society? If you're shot with a bullet and you're a police officer, your vest can rebuild itself. All of these things are technologies that we continuously are advancing with, and therefore we need to continue investing in space exploration, and it is still completely worthwhile. Further, the future investment in our space technology is crucial. We are going to destroy our Earth through environmental reasons or through other means of destruction, and many people have come out and said this. Space exploration is the only way that we can continue our innovation and advancement and still give us a safety net when we do destroy the Earth. And so for all of these reasons, it's actually still going to be beneficial through the creation of jobs, through the creation of innovation and technology, and through the investment in our future. My case still stands while the opposition's does not.
All right, I'd like to issue a last round of thank yous to the audience, to judge, and so I'll be addressing my arguments first. So my argument of that is humanitarian aid. She says, hey, we spend a lot of money on the defense budget. What about that? That's fine and dandy, but we're not talking about the defense budget. We're talking about space exploration and its worthiness. And I'm telling you, it's not worth it. We're not getting the proper investment. There are better alternatives, such as that is the deep blue sea, investing in exploration of Antarctica and the ocean, and creating sustainable jobs in these 1 or 2-time ship trips that we make throughout that NASA is using the $17.5 billion for. She then goes on to say on my humanitarian argument how the only thing, she then goes on to say how, look, we're getting an $8 to $10 investment return, so that makes it worthwhile. We spend $35 million on pizza every year. But again, we're not discussing pizza. We're discussing the worthiness and if it's worthwhile to explore space. This $8 to $10 return is fine, but I'm telling you, we can get more from renewable energy that doesn't rely solely on oil and natural gases by going in and out of space, depleting, leaving debris on our Earth and in outer space. We're leaving a muck on Earth. There's no need to to leave muck in the stratosphere, in outer space, surrounding other planets, losing drones and losing satellites that go off. She says how ultimately the biggest hope we can have, due to our volatile nature, is finding another planet to live on. We aren't even close to that whatsoever. The closest planet is light years upon light years away. Everyone in this room and 10 generations deep from now won't be even a fraction of the way close. And investing $17.5 billion every year, this can go to much more better prospective gains. So next for my environmental argument, she says that ultimately due to alternatives, these are gained through we've gained these advancements through space exploration. Yes, back then, but we are currently at a point where space exploration has lost its worthiness. We have gained from it what we can, and it's time to invest in the deep blue sea. We have reaped the rewards. We have taken the fruit of our labor, and it's time to plant a new tree on this green earth, not explore space to find alternatives. She then goes on to say how ultimately, look, the human species is a volatile nature. We are at war, and experts say we're going to destroy our planet no matter what. With that mentality, yes. If you were searching the stars for a new home and your house is wrecked, yes. If you took the time, if you took the energy, if you allocated funds properly into renewable resources, sustainable jobs in the deep blue sea, if you cared about your brother, if you cared more about your fellow man and your brethren, you would find that you would get a much larger bang for your buck. You'd get more than this $8 to $10 return, and you would gain many more jobs. As I stated earlier, up to 500,000 additional jobs, but just a fraction of the ocean, this 90%, which we haven't even explored. We don't know what's in outer space. We know there are a lot of species we have not discovered in the deep blue sea, and it's time we invest in those. She then goes on to say how ultimately, look, these tech advancements can help. Tech advancements can help. But we can gain that and more, slated in the State article in March 2014, by investing in the deep blue sea. Today, as she said, we're getting memory foam. Yes, we gained CAT scans. Yes, we gained satellites from that. And she talked about the bulletproof vest that we were able to maintain. But scientists have agreed the deep blue sea is very similar to its survival origins in that in outer space, minus all the radiation. We can gain these technological advancements in a renewable, sustainable way, rather than shooting for the stars. She says ultimately, it comes down to this. We're going to destroy the earth. We have an alternative. We're reaping a reward. We're getting a bang for our buck. But it's not enough. I'm telling you, it's lost its worthiness, and we need to find a much more worthy approach, a much more humanitarian, explicit, special approach, which is the deep blue sea, investing in the Pacific, investing in the Atlantic, investing more in humanitarian aid, and stop throwing money away at this space exploration and everything that can occur from it. Yes, we spend $35 billion on pizza. Yes, the United States has a lot of issues. Guilty. But we can make amends, and it all starts with determining the worthiness of space exploration. Ultimately, it comes down to two words. And hers, honestly, if you truly believe in the worthiness of exploration, you can pull out your phones right now and donate $5 to $10 to NASA. Go start a GoFundMe. But do it if you truly believe. But if you believe in my world, go start a GoFundMe for those in Haiti, for those in Ukraine, for those who need a meal on their plate every day. Thank you.
So I'd like to start off this speech again with a blanket of thanks to everybody for being here. You guys have been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much to my opponent for coming out here and debating with me today. So today, our resolution that we were given is space exploration is worth it. I believe that in this round, I have proved through multiple faceted argumentation that it is completely worth it on every aspect. First of all, I'd like to get into a little bit of argumentation on my definition of worth it. I said that it is good or successful to repay any effort, trouble, or expense. We can see through my argumentation that I've proved this to be true. First of all, with the economic side, we can see that when we have an $8 to $10 return on every dollar we spend, it's exponential in how much money we are actually returning on investment. Therefore, paying off all of the investment, the $17.5 billion, turns an investment. It makes us money. Further, it also creates jobs, as I talked about in my first speech of the NASA spinoff. He talks a lot about how the deep blue sea is this great thing, we create all these jobs and they're going to be sustainable jobs. That's what the NASA spinoff actually actually talks about, and this was the first point in my first speech. After we actually go out and we do these missions, the people in the mission may have a short-term job, but all of the people have to continuously work on these missions, work on the investments in putting out space technology, and work on all of the fields that we create through innovation. This is the second argument, is that we create innovation. This entire debate, he's been trying to say that it's not worth it, we have Velcro. I would like to point out that the argumentation that I've been leading to is a lot stronger innovation than just Velcro. We have actually developed technology for satellites. We wouldn't even know anything about all of our environmental issues without the advancements that we've made through space technology. With microchips, with CAT scans, everything that we have in society also comes from an aspect of innovation. Space exploration creates innovation in our society, and therefore it is completely worth it. My last part of argumentation that I'd like to bring up is that he basically comes up with this argumentation that it's an either or. We either put money into space or we put money into humanitarian. We either invest into the deep blue sea or we put it into space. This is not true. We actually already do all of these things at the same time in society. We can allocate our funds in any way that we choose, but the $17.5 billion that is going into space exploration is completely worth it. We can see all of these things, all of the argumentation, all of the case that still stands here today is going to be proving that this is clearly an AF-win. Further, I'd like to point out the fact that he's talking about the stuff that it's no longer worth it, that maybe it used to be worth it, but it's not anymore. But we can see that when we do destroy our planet, when we do not have the availability for us to continue living on this earth, space is the only option, and it's going to happen. Numerous people have pointed it out. Numerous people have started investing into space as a direct result, and this is the only tangible way that we can actually solve our problems. Further, I'd like to just point that through the argumentation in this round, it's going to clearly be an AF-win because of the fact that I have upheld the worth it definition and I've laid out the economics, the investment, and the future of our society at large. So for all of these reasons, it's a clear AF-win today.